Welcome to the Quantum Biology Collective podcast, where we break down the practical strategies of this emerging science, starting with healthy light habits and going wherever the quantum superhighway takes us. This is your host, Meredith Oke, and we'd also love to hear from you. Visit www.quantumbiologycollective.org and click QBC newsletter to join the conversation. When we're young, living hard and fast easily becomes a way of life. As we get older, not so much. When it comes to changing that, most of us need to hear the message multiple times before we get it. John Warner is no different. And in this episode, he explains how his family history with cancer gradually led him to shift his habits and paradigm from the standard approach of hardcore workouts and an overpacked schedule to a quantum healthy routine of sunlight and high quality sleep. John shares how this shift likely saved his life when he had to face his own cancer diagnosis. I so appreciate his candor and humor in telling this story. There's a lot in here for all of us. Enjoy. Hey, John Warner, welcome. It's so good to have you here on the podcast.
Good. Thank you for having me, Meredith.
It's such a pleasure. So I love your story, and I love how you came to all this information for your personal health journey. And now you are out in your community locally in person, giving talks on sunlight and circadian rhythms and quantum biology. So give us a brief recap of how that came to be.
Well, a long time ago, 97, I lost my father to cancer. And there was two doctors in white coats standing there saying, nothing we can do. And I was younger, a lot younger then. And I just believed him and kind of ignored him and blew him off. You know, like, well, I got to go deal with dad now. It's time is short. So it didn't really start there, but I think about that a lot. And I've had 4 aunts and uncles on my mom's side pass from cancer, all different kinds. My couple other aunts and uncles have health problems. There was 10 kids in all. My grandpa lived to be 94. My grandma's 95 now.
Wow.
Yeah, doing good. Very little health problems until just recent, which I'll sign up for. In your 90s, you just start getting problems.
Yeah.
All their kids, and now my cousins, their grandkids, even people younger than me, have cancers, tumors, problems. I'm got to thinking in the middle of all this, there's no answers. You know, the same with the two doctors, smart guys, brilliant, very well educated, saying, we don't know. We don't know. And I've not always been curious on the health side of my life, but I've always been curious. And I'm like, well, that's not good enough. You know, there's got to be a way. Somebody has to know, you know, that's a bunch of these smart people that don't have any idea. At first, I bought it, you know, with my dad. And then after I started seeing a pattern, I didn't buy it. So it started with fasting. It always goes to food first, it seems.
Yeah.
That's the easy.
Okay. So you took a look at this family history and you were like, why is everyone in my family getting cancer?
Yes.
And you're like, all right. Okay. So, and the doctors don't have an answer. They're like, sorry, too bad.
None had an answer.
You all have the cancer gene. You're all going to get cancer.
Yeah.
And once you get cancer, there's not much we can do about it.
We're going to chemo, radiation, and, you know, you're going to get better or you're not. You know, that's kind of what.
So we'll try these things. If they work, they work. If they don't, that's all we've got.
Right.
Like, say your goodbyes. Okay.
Yes.
So young John Warner's like, I don't really like that answer. I'm going to look for some other things. Okay.
But
got
younger it. John Warner didn't think about it. Younger John Warner just went on living his life.
He just said, yeah, okay, got it. Okay. So as you approached the age of
a little older and wiser, I guess.
Yeah. It's like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more to know.
Yes. Once it starts climbing up and it's not a one-off. And then the ironic thing is I grew up in Western Iowa. A lot of my dad's friends and colleagues, it's farm country. He drove semi, hauled grain. He worked in grain elevators. A bunch of people in that area got cancer and got sick. My dad was the first. And so I got to thinking after this started compiling on, I'm like, well, how come nobody's asking questions? How come nobody has an answer for this? And so
Right.
I got to thinking, I'm like I said, food, well, our food's
Right.
bad, and
Yeah.
it is. I mean,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking, well, I got to start eating right.
Hmm.
And so I got to fasting. I discovered fasting and then exercise, because you
Okay.
healthy, you think, well, who's the healthiest people? And then you look at like bodybuilders or people go to the
Yeah.
gym, well, they look fit. They're the healthiest people, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. And I'm
For
like,
sure. Yeah. That's where all our minds go. It's like, oh, I need to be healthier. Got to look at my food. Got to look at my exercise.
yep.
Yeah.
And that it stops there
Absolutely.
for most
Okay.
people. Yeah, stops there for most people. Thank God it didn't for me, but that's where I started. So I go to
Okay.
the gym, start eating right. I go into the gym, bad. I'll get into that later. Started fasting and eating right. Good. That's a good thing.
Hmm.
But that wasn't enough. It moved the needle
Okay.
on me a little. I'm a farrier by trade, real
Okay.
physically demanding job.
Could you explain what a farrier is for
I,
the
I,
urban folk who are
yeah,
dumb
it's all
like
right.
me?
It's okay. I trim and shoe horses. I trim feet and nail on shoes on the horse's feet.
Wow. So you're
Yeah.
like wrestling horses for
Yes,
your
I'm
job?
wrestling
All
horse.
right. So yeah, that's full on.
Yeah. At
Okay.
this point in my career, most of them I don't have to wrestle anymore. I've been doing it almost 30 years. So,
So you have the technique. You are
and I get to kind of be picky with
right.
my clientele.
Right.
So I kind of work for who I want to at this point in that career.
Okay.
Uh, but it's still a very physically demanding job.
Yes.
It wears on you.
Incredibly. I
Yeah.
now have like 10,000 questions about the farrier trade, but this is a health podcast, so
All
we'll
right,
stay
we'll do
focused on
another
that.
one. We'll do another one.
Okay.
So your body gets beat up doing that.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't overweight, but I was inflamed. I was a little overweight, not much. I wouldn't call myself obese by any means.
Hmm.
I was inflamed, a little overweight. So the fasting turned the needle, and I thought exercise
Mm.
turned the needle in the gym. Turns out it didn't, which I'll get into the exercise later.
Okay.
But the fasting I lost some weight. I wasn't as inflamed, and that turned the
Right.
needle on how I felt. I will
Right.
admit that. That was good.
Okay. So fasting helped. And I do think it's important that your job plays a role because it is active. You are moving around to do that job. You're not an office worker. You're not like behind a laptop under fluorescent LED or LED lights all day long. You're
No,
kind of out doing stuff.
yeah,
Okay.
usually in a barn, but the barn's open, big doors open, breezeways,
Yeah.
or just a covered barn.
Okay.
So I'm not inside in an office. I'm virtually outside.
Okay.
Yeah. But then I get in my truck and drive a couple hours, every day, to work
Right.
to go to work. So that's like being an
Okay.
office.
Right.
Yeah, I'm outside most of the day. And then, you get banged up and I've been stepped on, so I got some old injuries that talk to me and this and that. So, and your back takes an excruciating beating. I've had a couple flare ups, a bulging disc. We've been on a nerve that hadn't been able to walk for a couple of days. And then I use light water and magnetism and then and cold, the protocols to get better.
Hmm.
Because
Right.
I've seen people that have that gimp around their whole life with that.
Right.
I'm back shoeing horses in a week and a half.
Because you
Full
know
time.
what to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. So just super quickly. So your back flared up. You said water light magnetism. What does that mean? What did you do to get your back
I
healed quickly?
two things. I get out in the sunlight. Morning
Mm-hmm.
sunlight's most important. And then another important is when there's UVA or UVB out in the middle of the day. I get out in that a lot.
Okay.
But you must get out in the morning to prep your skin for the UVB.
Yes.
Because I'm Norwegian, Irish, and German. I used to
Mm-hmm.
be the guy that burned.
Oh yeah.
I would lather sunscreen on me, wear sunglasses, you know, wear clothes, shirts, because everybody's lathering sunscreen on me because I'm the cherry tomato out there. I'm going to
Yeah.
get it and burn. Now, about 2020, I don't burn anymore. I'm red, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
burn. I mean,
Right.
Dave,
Yeah.
my
You know how to do it. Yeah. We just did a great podcast
cancer. It was pretty bad. She went through chemo. I begged her not to do it. She did, which is fine. And she has a bad thyroid. She worked in an office. She drove before sunrise to the office all day. After sunset, drove home. So blue light all day, no sunshine. So I get to think,
constant blue light exposure, no sunshine. Yeah. So she might have needed that chemo. You never.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about light at that time. So I was listening to another podcast, and they interviewed Jack Cruz. And he was talking about sunlight. Just go outside, because in the podcast they were like, okay, what do we do? Just go outside in the morning, watch the sunrise, be like the Sphinx, eat like a great white shark, and live like a plant. And I'm thinking,
sorry, you cut out there for a sec. Live like a what?
A polar bear.
A polar bear. Okay.
So
sit in the sun like a Sphinx. This is vintage Cruz. Okay, sit in the sun like a Sphinx. Eat like a great white shark.
Yep. Eat fat fish.
All right.
Be cold.
And get in the cold water like a polar bear. All right.
Sleep. I got sleep out of that, because I was sleeping pretty good because I got a physical job, but I'd wake up a couple times a night, which I didn't think was a big deal, but it turns out it was. So I come on to him about 2020. And so I'm like, well, heck, I'll give this a try. And within a few short days, I was sleeping through the night. I'm like, I didn't wake up. I didn't wait, I'm not waking up in the middle of the night. So it's like, wow, there's something to this. If I'm like just a few days of watching the sunrise and I'm sleeping at night and not waking up, there's probably something to this. And so I'm like,
so within a few days of doing intentional morning sunrise light and mitigating artificial light after sunset, your sleep patterns totally changed.
Yes.
All right.
It was
amazing.
Wearing the blue blockers. If you have the lights on, now we have red light and candles. No lights on after dark. No light switches are flipped after dark.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yep.
So you noticed that all of a sudden you're sleeping through the night within a few days, and you're like, wow, okay. That's kind of cool. All right. So what next?
So I start digging into blogs, podcasts, and I figured out my food was pretty good. I was eating right, but I started eating seasonal and local, which is important. If I wouldn't, because you're thinking salads, that's one of my slides on my talk, is salads can make you fat and sick. And everybody that's fat and sick eats salads to get healthy. Or fruit.
Okay, so super quick, tell us why a salad could make you fat and sick.
Well, if it's eaten when it's not grown in your environment, it's a mismatch to your mitochondria.
Okay.
So if food don't grow in your environment, you shouldn't eat it. Like transport yourself back. Well, when the grocery stores were in the 40s or 50s, so transplant yourself back to the early 1900s.
Right.
What'd you eat?
What would be available?
What would be available?
What could I get at a farmer's market?
Right. What could I get from the local farmer? Because he wasn't giving you bananas in, Iowa in December.
Yeah.
You were getting deer meat or beef, you weren't getting anything. And the food's a mismatch nowadays. So if you're eating after dark because you're supposed to eat when the light's out, or if you live on the equator, you're probably going to eat a ton of fruit because it grows there all the time.
Yeah.
If you're in New York or Iowa and you're eating fruit in the winter, your mitochondria don't have that light signal that fruit did. So that's all about the light signal.
Yeah. This is where the quantum biology aspect gets crazy. It's like, what?
Yeah. People look at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, just transport yourself back before you could go to the grocery store. What would you have ate?
Right.
And go back then too. And we're like, 1 in 3 people have cancer now. Did 1 in 3 people have cancer back then?
Yeah. No. So many things.
Yeah.
Okay. So you started with food, exercise, then you heard a Dr. Jack Cruz, and we're getting into light, seasonal eating, circadian timed eating.
Yes.
Okay. So then
Breakfast,
what happens?
big breakfast. I started
Yeah.
when I fasted, I skipped breakfast, and
Hmm.
I ate lunch and supper. And I moved the needle there. But then I started eating breakfast. And I used to be the guy, Meredith, that would Tex-Mex is big here, you know,
Uh-huh.
and they tex it up. It's not real authentic Mexican. Fajitas, I'd order fajitas for two. Yeah,
Yeah.
appetizer. I'd eat Charlotte's leftovers. I'd eat my son's. I used to be the guy that could eat. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Oh, food. Because for one, I wasn't getting sun. I wasn't getting any sunlight. I was blocking the sun even though I was outside. Sunscreen, sunglasses,
Yeah.
and clothes. So I'm blocking the sun. If you block the sun, you need to eat more. So,
Aha.
and I ate breakfast and started eating breakfast, and my breakfast became bigger, the biggest meal of the day.
Yeah.
And then I would eat a light lunch early afternoon, and I'd be satiated. I'm fine. I don't tip every now and then we'll go out and have supper,
Yeah.
every now and then, but most
So
times,
you shifted that fasting window to the evening from the
oh,
morning.
evening to the morning.
Right. But I'm saying, yeah. So you moved eating your food into the morning.
Yes.
Okay. And just give us like a really quick explanation of why that's a better fasting window is
That
to have a big breakfast and no dinner versus a big dinner and no breakfast.
that sets your start. It's all about, we talked about circadian rhythm. It sets
Yeah.
your circadian rhythm for the day. It gets all your hormones going, it gets everything going. But the main thing is not eating. If you eat at night, if you eat late, then you're digesting food and you're not probably getting into the apoptosis and autophagy when you sleep.
Yeah. So your
So
body's all busy working on the dinner when it should be busy
resting
cleaning
and
your cells,
yeah, for
doing all your
sure.
cleaning. Okay. And you said something really interesting. I just want to circle back real quick. You said when you go out in the sun, you don't get as hungry or you don't need to eat as much. Say a little bit more about your understanding of that statement.
We have vitamin D receptors on the very end of our inner mitochondria membrane.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're out in the sun, when there's UVB light out, it actually slows down electron transport chain, but it still makes ATP. So you're still making energy from light and you don't have to have food. So you don't have to eat as much. So photons from the sun in the purple range and the UVB range is actually making energy. It also, UVB light also, POMC and melanin.
Mm-hmm.
POMC is a protein in your body which makes, through a process, makes melanin, which charge separates water. And that also gives you energy. So you don't have to eat as much if you're in the sun. You have energy.
So crazy.
Well, it is.
But so good, right? And it kind of makes sense. Like we're not plants, but we're not as different from plants as we thought. Like we have been so trained to think that their only energy source is from what we put into our body versus the environment we put our bodies into.
Yeah, well, plants and us are very similar though. We both use the sun. If you block the sun, everything's gone.
Yeah.
Us, plants, everything.
Yeah.
So it's just not the plants that are going to die if you block the sun. We're not going to.
Yes. And in the same way, yeah, the same way we think of the photosynthesis of the plants absorbing what the energy and what they need from the sun, we're doing the same thing, it turns out.
Yes, mitochondrial,
Okay.
same thing.
All right. Okay. So um you have now implemented all of the protocols that come from understanding health from a circadian and in your case even a quantum understand you have even a quantum understanding. So then what happens?
Well, 2022, I
Yeah.
do y'all's course, and my back originally flared up then bad. I mean, it flared up a few times before, but it flared up early 2022, January, into January.
Mm-hmm.
Like I couldn't get out of bed. I had to throw myself out of the bed to get up.
Oh,
Every time I'd like try to sit up, like if you're laying in bed and you get up, I
yeah.
like paralyzed. I'd just lock up. And it was like I didn't have a choice. I couldn't muscle through it. I was just there. And so after a while, I finally I got to throw myself off the bed. I just can't, I'm not going to never get up if I don't. And so I did that. And I got to a chiropractor because it's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
A horseshoe and your back hurts. You go to a chiropractor first. And so I went to him and he helped me a bit. He moved the needle. And at that time, I was doing this.
Yes.
I was just doing way too many horses and driving too much. Even though you live a quantum lifestyle, don't mean you can still mess up.
Yeah.
Everybody's
okay. It's not like free license to totally trash your body.
No, it's not. It is not.
All right.
No, you still have to mitigate what you're doing.
Okay. So if you're getting tossed around by horses and then sitting behind the wheel of a truck for multiple hours a day, your back is still going to be like, no, thank you.
No, thank you. Especially after about 30 years of doing it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So there's the cumulative effects as well. All right.
Yeah. So then in a couple of weeks, I was back shoeing, but I'd just get out here and lay in the sun. I just put my cool tans on, tan through shorts, go lay out in the ground because it was comfortable to lay. And I just lay in the sun all day. And then I'd get an ice bath. So I'd get in 45, 50 degrees ice a couple of times a day. And at first it hurt, the ice. I don't know what mechanism that does, but it would aggravate it. And I just worked through it and then it kind of went away. And it turned the needle pretty fast. And then I had a consult and I'm thinking I need to figure out what's wrong with it. I want to see how debilitating this back is, if it's just a flare up or if I need to change what I'm doing. Not shoe horses.
So you had a feeling there was something more to the back than just a standard
standard bulging disc or disc.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
you had an intuition like there's something more going on here.
That's a good word because when you do this, when you're in light, your intuition and your critical thinking gets better.
It does.
A whole nother podcast.
That's a whole other but worth talking about for a minute, right? Because I certainly noted, right? And there's so many aspects to it that we could go into, but part of it I think is just paying attention, right? Like in order to be outside and know what's going on, we're learning to pay attention to our environment, which helps us to pay attention to our bodies, which helps us to notice things.
Yes,
definitely. So you are noticing, so you have a heightened intuition and a heightened connection to your physical self.
My body. Yeah. Okay. I know when I'm getting tired. I know when I'm shouldn't do something like a workout and and all the workout, just push through. And no, that's not a good idea. Don't just relax and take it easy. So you get to think better. So I'm thinking, this is not right. Something's wrong.
Okay.
And then so I go for a consult. And I'm told you have to have an MRI because I came with X-rays. And he's like, got to have an MRI. Can't see nothing without an MRI. So I'm like, so I go home and I'm like.
So and you had a consult with Dr. Cruz, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you tell him what's going on and his intuition's not bad either. So he's like,
it's pretty good.
Get that checked out right now.
Yes. You got to have an MRI.
Okay.
Yes. You got to have.
Great.
I can't I don't even want to see your X-rays. It don't matter. I have to have an MRI.
All right.
That's the only way to tell about what's going on back there.
Okay.
And so I go home and, you got good days and you're like, I don't need an MRI. I feel good. And a few days later, it's a little sore, and it's like, I better get an MRI. So the end of April that year, middle April, I go get an MRI. Well, I shoe for a friend. His mom's a doctor. So I don't have a doctor. I don't have a general physician. So I got to find one. Okay. So I go to him and I'm like, hey, I need an MRI. And they're like, well, why? And I'm like, well, I can't walk. My back is in pain. And so they ordered an MRI. The next afternoon, they call me. Or John calls me. He's like, hey, get in my office now. And he's an hour away and it's 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, to your office today? What do I need to go to your office for? And he's like, you need to get here now. And I'm like, and I knew when he said that the second time, all my family history, I've heard this before,
You're like, I know that this tone of voice.
I know this is not good.
Okay.
So he goes, well, you know what? It's too late in the day anyway. I just need you to get an MRI tomorrow morning. And I'm like, I just had an MRI. He goes, I said, well, why do I need an MRI? I can't tell you. Like, all right. So you know how that emotion goes, just
Hmm.
everywhere. So I go the next morning, get an MRI, and I have a tumor on my right kidney, about a 6 month
Oh,
tumor. And I'm like, how in the world did I get a tumor on my right kidney? And I'm thinking, well, John, now what you've learned these past couple, 2, 3 years,
yeah.
it's like I did everything wrong for about 48 years of my life, or 45, however long. I
Yeah.
lived in the wrong place. I was in the military, which is a horrible environment. Radio antennas, they were
Mm,
military's been using high tech stuff way before any of us had this.
right.
you know, and so a military base is the worst place you can be, just about. Um, I ate what I wanted when I wanted. I didn't get sun. When I was in the sun, I'd put sunscreen on, wear sunglasses or long sleeves. I avoided the sun. You name it, I slept it with. Meredith, we lived in a place for a couple of years that had a Wi-Fi tower about 3/4 of a mile away, and we put the router on the window seal right by our headboard on our bedroom.
Right.
Okay,
Oh gosh.
that was the best signal. you know,
Yeah, you're like, this works
yeah,
great.
this works great. This is the best signal there is. And
Yeah,
then
see, yeah, when you go back playing quantum health detective, it's like,
yes,
oh,
yes, and then
okay.
I love coffee. I would drink a thermos of coffee, a pot of coffee every day.
Wow.
Summer, winter, didn't matter. It wasn't good coffee either. It was the junk you buy in the grocery store on the shelf. And the water was fluorinated tap water. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder why my kidney, got the,
Mm,
I just, I can't specifically point to one thing,
yeah.
what caused that. But that's the critical thinking comes in. You just
Yes.
piece everything together, and it's,
Yeah.
my family's like, oh, because I was in the desert for some time, and
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, my family's, oh, it started over there, and it may have started when I grew up in Iowa. They were spraying crops, and the water was bad there for a long time. It may
Right.
have started 10 years ago. It may have started three. I don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, we can't know. There's so many factors.
But
All we know is like what I was saying, we're on the Sarah Pugh podcast. It's like the genetics are the gun and the environment pulls the trigger. And
right,
like our environment, I mean, you just listed all of the things going on
yeah.
your whole
Well,
life, different things in different places, but there's always something.
yes. Back to my mom.
Yeah.
She did the genetic testing on her.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the doctor with her just about every time, and was there for most of it. And it's not genetic. None of it's genetic. None of the family's cancers is genetic. And I'm like, so
Really?
yes, that
So
really. And
that's my assumption because we're also taught
yes,
that everything is genetically determined. So all of your family is getting all of these cancers and there's no gene for it.
no gene. It's none of them.
Oh,
All of them are tested.
so
Now,
that's
I mean,
all environment.
right. The early ones weren't tested because they didn't test back then, but
Yeah.
the later ones were tested. None of it's genetic. And so I knew that before I came into the quantum health thing. And I'm like, well, I was starting piecing stuff together already.
No
But
wonder you got curious. You're like, what is
yeah,
happening?
yeah, because it's not
Okay.
genetic. So why is everybody getting different things? And
Huh.
so I go in April, I get that. And so I'm like, the kidney filters your blood. And then if that cancer gets in your bloodstream, you're pretty toast. I mean, you're done.
Right.
There's
Okay.
not a good outcome for that. So I
Okay.
thought about just selling everything and moving to Mexico or the tropics,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not, I got surgery, and I thought about in a short time about what to do because
Yeah.
like, and most people were like, get that kidney out of you. You can live with one kidney for the rest of your life just fine.
Yeah.
And so that's what I opted to do.
Yeah.
Surgery. He was going to just, because the kidney function was great. My blood work was great. My blood work didn't show anything. Of course, there's no blood work for kidney cancer like there is like ovarian cancer, but
Okay.
all my kidney markers, all my blood work, it was great. Another thing that happened when I started watching the light was my BUN creatinine ratio tells you how good your water's making mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
That got better over my blood work. So my
Hmm.
blood work was getting better even with cancer. you know.
Wow.
So
Right.
so the
So
tools,
there's this tumor in there
yes,
that's been triggered to grow by something. And as you said, a lifetime, we can't always reverse a lifetime of
right,
choices.
right.
Okay. But the rest of you is like amazing.
Yeah, I feel great.
Okay. And then so there's this little, and you've got this tumor. Okay. And it's like a choice point, right? Like, what do you do?
Yes. So
Okay.
I opt
So,
for surgery.
okay, good. So you
Just
just got that sucker out of there.
yep, just get it out.
Awesome. All
But
right.
the funny thing was, I asked the doctor's son, the original doctor's son's a DNA specialist of all things. And I'm like, so you ask, how did I get this? And
Uh-huh.
like, and he's the only one that has answered, a DNA specialist, but he can
Yeah.
critically think, only if
Yeah.
he's the one that answered it correctly. He just looks at me and he goes, have you looked around outside? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, all the towers, all the cell phone towers, all the radiation that's going on. He said, do you wear your cell phone in your pocket? And I'm like, no, I don't do that stupid stuff. I said, and I'm thinking, but I used to,
Mm.
but the DNA specialist
Wow.
knew the environment
He
mattered.
understood
Yes,
that the frequencies in our environment are affecting our
yes,
DNA
yes, yes. They
and our
dehydrate.
more importantly, our mitochondria.
Yes. So fast
Right.
forward to the surgeon, within a month, I'm in the surgeon's office a few times,
Mm-hmm.
and great guy, loved him, great surgeon. But I asked him, why did I get this? And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, you're I'm fairly fit. I'm not, a bodybuilder, but I'm fit. And he goes, there's another guy, and the surgeon was pretty fit too. And he goes, there's another guy that came in here that has a prostate that's out of control, and he's fitter than you and me put together. He goes, I don't get it. And I'm like, and I'm like, well, doc, it's to block this crappy light you have above me. And he looks at me, and I said, that's isolated blue light. I said, that's isolated 450 blue light, nanometer blue light. I said, if you think UV light's bad isolated, that's worse. I said, UV has been vilified by, the medical industry, not you, but the medical industry. And I said, that's the isolated light that needs to be vilified. I said, that's what's causing all this. And he just looked at me like I was like he had no idea. Brilliant guy. I mean, smart guy, great
Yeah.
surgeon, great
Yeah.
surgeon. I mean, he did a great job, but knew about light
No,
or
but
why anybody gets cancer. And I'm thinking, this is where the paradigm is. We're in 2023. 1 in 3 people have cancer. And I know some people in the medical industry know because there's
mm-hmm.
patents on blue light. The
Mm-hmm.
powers that be know. But just your
Yeah,
everyday doctors or surgeons, they have not a clue.
no
That
idea.
they weren't taught that. And
Nope.
I didn't know that, so I can't be mad at them for not knowing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're all on a journey.
Yeah.
I hope, and he's not my doctor anymore because your surgeon don't need to be your aftercare doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope he's gone back and just, I hope I made him curious, to look at that, because something has to change. And until we can talk and all our cohorts can talk, we have a community, but to move the needle like from empty to full, I think the medical field, the doctors and the nurses, like my surgeon and the nurses have to get on board with this and really push. And there's going to be this.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's one thing I've been learning is that people don't necessarily like shifting paradigms.
no, no. Well,
They're not that interested. And they think like I went to medical school and you shoe horses. So I'm the
yes,
one who knows all the things.
right.
And yet you are in there truth telling.
Yes,
Like there's no way, even someone totally cut off from their intuition, like there's no way that your articulation of the situation didn't resonate on some level. So
right.
I feel very sure that you planted a seed.
I think so.
And good for you for doing it.
Well, there's studies. I mean, I save my studies, I print some out. I know you have piles. I have piles of studies that show high vitamin D and the vitamin D linked to cancer. Most, if not all cancers have low vitamin D.
Yeah.
So if the sun causes cancer, how is that possible if you don't have any vitamin D?
Right.
So
Yeah. No, it makes,
we think.
yeah.
I have friends that don't buy this. They're like, that's crazy. I don't know about that light thing. That's crazy. I'm like, they're all about food, which is fine. But I'm like, take your food away. You can live a long time. You might have to have magnesium. People have fasted for 30 days and way longer. You take that sun away, and nobody's going anywhere.
Yeah.
There's going
Yeah.
to be food. So I'm like, take your paradigm away. We're going to be fine because nature always wins. But if you take nature away, we're done for. But nobody puts that together.
No. And we're not really even given the opportunity to, right? Like there's no context for it. So that's why, I loved having these conversations.
Yeah.
Because it's like the information is out there, right? And
Oh, it
as
is.
you said, people know. I did an interview with one of the pioneers in circadian research. And so even like taking out the quantum piece, because the academic circadian guys don't know any, people. They don't know anything about quantum, but they know a lot about circadian. And they now understand how it's like, basically impossible to be healthy if we mess up our circadian rhythms. So I have doing this interview and he's going over all the research that shows a definitive causal link between artificial light at night and cancer growth. And I'm like, so when is this study from? He's like, 2007. I'm like,
right.
oh. And what about this one? 2001. I'm like, oh, so did anyone think to maybe tell us? And he's like,
Right.
oh, all the scientists know. We used to joke the scientists all know, but not their neighbors. I'm like,
Right.
the neighbors would like to know.
Yes, they would. Yes. Yeah. Well, I think it's kept down for a reason.
Possible.
I don't want to get into the nefarious
Yeah.
parts of big pharma, but I mean, they make money off people being sick.
Yes.
The sun is free.
So there's industries that make money off you being sick, and there's industries that make money off of selling you something, right? So aligning your circadian rhythms, like there's no clear monetization of that, right? Like it's a
Right.
habit change. So what I've coming to understand is that, if there's no clear monetization, there doesn't seem to be an impulse to get that information integrated into the institutional lines of education, even though, like the scientist made the point that like circadian research is exploding. And I went and looked it up on PubMed, right? And there's like, they do a little graph of how many papers are published on this topic. And it's like flat 70s, 80s, 90s. And then it goes, and it's like, there's like almost 100,000 papers on circadian rhythms and circadian regulation in PubMed right now. And we're still barely discussing it. Like,
I know.
Right? Like my kids go to health class and they come home and they're like, yeah, social media is bad for you because it makes you feel bad about yourself. I'm like, and it's on a screen.
Right. Exactly.
It's not part of the conversation yet.
No, it's not. Well, I see people and friends and, family, and just, I've learned I'm a people watcher. I'm an observer. Thing. You don't have to be I'm a horseshoer. Okay. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I read studies. I read blogs. I'm learner of stuff way over my head. Okay. That's what I do. And I've figured this out, but it's just taking the time to figure it out. And doctors honestly should take the time, but they don't have the time. And they have a lot of them have I have the white coat. I'm smart. You're the horseshoer. You listen. I've been in them doctors' offices where because I'm like, well, I like to give my vitamin D, in a pill, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I don't take supplements. I just go in the sun and get my vitamin D. And he's like, well, that's all well and good, but, blah, blah, blah. And they just talk down at you. And I'm like, don't talk down at me. You're the one that's not keeping up with what's going on here.
Oh, John, I love it. I love your approach and I love your confidence, right? And that comes from doing the research. And as you said, like pushing yourself to understand things. I mean, I don't totally understand all of this, but like I talk to enough people who I trust that they do. And I'm like, okay, tell me again. Tell me again how it works.
I think the principles are simple. The science can get weighty,
Yes.
But I think a lot of people don't buy into this or follow this or do this because it is so simple.
Yeah.
Because I've told friends, I'm like, look, just get up and watch the sunrise. They have high blood pressure. I'm like, go stay out in the sun for an hour in the morning. Make sure you get UVA light. I said, there's an app on your phone. You can figure out when it's about an hour after sunrise, or you can look at the app. I said, that will lower your blood pressure. And make sure you have skin in the game and no glasses. And they're like, what? That? I'm like, it's too, and like,
yes.
Don't flip your light switch up after sunset. Leave your lights off. That's one of the worst things you can do for you is turn your lights on. I said, it's that simple. Watch the sunrise and don't turn your lights on at night. But society is not built for that. We're built 24/7 light, perpetual 72 degrees. Nobody's hot, nobody's cold. There's lights all the time, and we wonder what's wrong. And then when you have the answer, you have the light and dark. God said, let there be light. And then he separated the light from the darkness. I mean, that was one of the very first things he did, but we don't live like that anymore. And everybody's like, well, what's happened? What's wrong? Why do I have cancer? Why am I sick? Well, I know I gave myself cancer. Can I pinpoint exactly what did it? No, I can't. But I know all everything that piled up to do it.
Yeah.
And it was artificial light at night, lack of vitamin D, not going into not doing apoptosis and autophagy, which light drives.
Right.
Red light drives autophagy, UV light drives apoptosis, and the food people can't wrap that around their head, that light drives things in your body.
Yes.
But we're so smart nowadays. People's like, no, that's too simple. It's got to be way more complex than that. Well, in study, it is complex. It's very complex.
Yeah. Yes. The science is very complex. The application of it is very simple.
Yes.
And also the layers of conditions and symptoms and illnesses that people have is very complex.
Yes.
But again, the fundamentals on the path to healing are very simple. I don't want to pretend like do these 3 things and you'll reverse your whatever, but
No,
it is the foundational piece.
yes, it is for sure. It's light, water, magnetism, food, sleep, exercise, all that matters. But if you don't put flour in your cake batter mix,
Yeah.
like, if you don't watch the sun, none of this other stuff matters.
Right. And so you were saying, about the apoptosis and the autophagy, and it's like our bodies are designed to heal and repair while we're sleeping. Yes. And to collect what they need during the daylight hours to make that happen optimally. And when we mess that up, we throw ourselves into chaos.
Yes, disease happens. I'm a walking example of it. And so are many other people.
All right. So let's just wrap up. So you had your surgery?
Yes.
Are you now cancer-free?
Yes, cancer-free. Okay. Actually, this is ironic, spooky, and a little weird and neat at the same time. But I was 51 when I had my surgery. My dad was 51 when he passed. I had surgery on his birthday, May 24th.
Oh, wow.
It was weird. I was like, I almost didn't do it. I'm laughing because it's not funny, but I was like, and I didn't realize it till a couple of days before. You got to go to the hospital and do all the chest x-rays and all that and get the pre-op stuff. And it just clicked. It's like, my dad's birthday's in a couple of days, and that's my surgery date. And I'm thinking, and I had a trip for Alaska scheduled 2 months after that. So I'm like, I got to get this done. I'm going to Alaska.
Did you get there?
Yes, I did.
Good for you.
So I had surgery on May 24th. They were just going to take the tumor because the kidney looked great. Mm-hmm. But he got in there and the main vein was entangled in the tumor. So it was too risky to try to cut it out. But I'd lost a lot of blood. He's like, I'm just taking the whole thing. Because I told him, I said, whatever you got to do when you get in there, just make sure.
Right. So, and I think that's an important point, John, because you're sitting in his office and you're like, this guy doesn't know anything about light, but he does know about kidney surgery. So so you are wise enough to be like, when we're in your area, you make the call. Okay.
Totally respect him as a surgeon.
Yeah.
So great surgeon. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's really, that's just worth highlighting, because that was I think showed great wisdom on your part. Because sometimes we're like, oh, those idiots don't know anything. It's like, no, they know things. They just don't know the same things we do. But we often may need that expertise. So I do have respect for that, for sure.
There are times where you're going to need centralized medicine. I tell Charlotte, I said, my wife, I'm like, I might have could have lived till 90 with this. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Or I may have died in 2 weeks. Didn't risk it. So I did centralized medicine. That everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people probably will need it at some point. You just have to know not to just give in blindly to them. Right. Because I told them right up, I said, look, I'm not doing chemo. I'm not doing radiation. I'm not doing any aftercare. I said, you're taking this out and that's it. I don't care what anybody says. He goes, no, you don't have to do chemo. That's kidney surgery. That's not a thing. We don't do that for the most part, unless it's just spread wild.
Right.
I'm like, I don't care where it is. I'm not doing it. And he's like, right. But as a surgeon, I respect you. I respect what you've done. I respect who you are. Yeah. So yes, there is a need sometimes for centralized doctors. There sure is.
Absolutely.
I'm thankful to have them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the skills of those surgeons is really, what can be accomplished these days. It's miraculous.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Yep.
Okay. So you had a very skilled surgeon. He made the call. He took the kidney and the tumor out of your body, and you are now cancer-free.
Yep. Cancer-free. Just had an MRI about 2 weeks ago. The other kidney looks really good. So
great. Congratulations.
Good to go. I'm due to get blood work pretty soon. Of course, that ain't going to tell me anything. No, it will, because there's ways you can read that.
Yeah.
But not for my specific, not for my other kidney for the cancer. But, just it's markers for your health, so it's a good way to test how you've done. Like your vitamin D markers, your BUN creatinine ratio markers, all cholesterol is kind of they've used that for a monetizing thing, but it's a way to monitor your health.
Yes.
So it's
that's great.
So yeah, I'm cancer free. I still get in the sun all the time. Now I'm human. There's days where I'm busy. I've slowed down since I've had surgery, so I can spend more time in the sun. See, a lot of people don't want to change their paradigm or how they live. They just want to keep doing the same thing, and you can't get sick, can't get well in the same environment you got sick in, and you can't get well keep doing the same thing that got you sick. You have to be able to change. And so I've even changed my work and my schedule so I can be outside more, so I can be with my family more, so I can be in the ice bath more, so I don't have to travel as much and drive around as much. So you have to be willing to change. And most people aren't willing to change nowadays. They're just doing the same old thing.
Well, bless you for being one of those people and for so beautifully and eloquently sharing your story. You gave a talk recently at your local Weston A. Price chapter. Got some more talks coming up. Do you have a place where people can find you, or?
Just my Instagram. I don't do a lot of technology.
Good for you.
This is pushing it. I mean, I can do a Zoom call. I can put together a PowerPoint, but Instagram. It's John Warner Movement.
John Warner Movement. Okay.
Yeah, I recently this year, and I was going to do it before, but my back flared up. I became a MovNat trainer. I know you've.
Oh, fabulous! Yeah, we had Erwan on a few weeks ago. Oh, that's great.
So I became a MovNat trainer, and I'm going to start. It's a process. I'm going to start training people and moving to that. I mean, that's kind of like my retirement gig. I
love it. I love it.
Yeah, so that's how you're supposed to exercise.
You're someone for whom becoming a movement trainer is a relaxing option to your old job.
Yeah, it is. It is.
All right, and remind me, what location are you? Like, where are you if someone wants to reach out locally?
I'm in Southeast Texas.
Okay.
You say the Houston area. I'm away from Houston, but that's the closest thing that can find me. Southeast Texas. Just Instagram, DM me. Yeah, I have where you can sign up for the email, John Warner Movement on Instagram. But I'm on the Quantum Health page too, I believe.
Okay, in the directory.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So you can find John on Instagram at John Warner Movement. You can find him in the quantumbiologycollective.org directory. And I encourage you to do so. John, thank you so much for being here. It is always so fun to talk to you. I love it.
You bet, Meredith. Thanks for having me.
This has been the Quantum Biology Collective podcast. To find a practitioner who works from this point of view, visit our directory at quantumbiologycollective.org. If you are a practitioner, definitely check out our Applied Quantum Biology certification to consider as part of your continuing education plan. You can also just jump into our email community. We'd love to hear from you. Again, that's at quantumbiologycollective.org.